I'm so gentle, so.
Right.
I thought you would get that right. I'm calling this meeting to order. Welcome to the meeting. Mr. Williams, just hang on. Welcome to meeting number 131 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Industry. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format, as we know, pursuant to the standing orders and pursuant to the order of reference of Wednesday, February 7th, 2024. The committee is resuming consideration of Bill 352, an act to amend the Competition Act and the Competition Tribunal Act, and we will commence clause by clause today. We don't have anyone online, so we don't have to say about the testing, but we do have these things, and we need to keep them away from the microphone to protect our wonderful interpreters, so I'd ask for everyone's cooperation. Mr. Williams, you wanted to say something?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chair, thank you very much. We have a notice of motion. I just wanted to quickly put through before our motion, before we get to a lot of work today I know we want to get through. And Mr. Chair, we have a large workload the committee has in its docket.
If I could interrupt, yeah, because if we can get through the bill, we would, with the committee's consent, not meet on Wednesday if we can get through that today. Yeah. So.
And I know we've spent a lot of time on C27 for the last 3 or 4 months. And I know the committee is anxious to get to some of the other issues that are facing Canadians right now, specifically around high cost of living and inflation, productivity, affordability and taxation issues, and just the economy as a whole. So when we look at all of that work and the fact that we still want to get back to C27 and get that finished in the fall, we were hoping we could still meet for a few meetings over the summer just to deal with some of these issues. And I know that our member from Windsor also brought up, I think, a motion that he had on interprovincial trade and certain issues we have that we want to bring the Competition Bureau back for, which I'm all for. So we have a motion, Mr. Chair, that given the large workload the committee has in its docket, the committee instructs the chair to book 5 meetings between July 8th and September 13th while the House is adjourned to deal with unfinished business and pressing matters facing Canadians, such as the regulatory barriers to competition, wireless telecommunications affordability, and examining the government's proposal to mitigate Sustainable Development Technologies Canada funding into the National Research Council of Canada. Mr. Chair. Migrate, sorry, not mitigate.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Williams. Is there any? MP Massey.
Yeah, could we vote this to move this to committee business in terms of our subcommittee for the agenda? Because I'm open to considering this, but we're supposed to get more work done here today. I like some of the content here, but I thought that this is committee business and scheduling, which we normally have the subcommittee look at. So that's the only thing. I wasn't prepared to deal with this today. And then I'm also would like to know the financial costs associated with adding these meetings in the summertime, because many of the staff here haven't had a break and will require the House to resume too. So perhaps we could get that as well. So I'm open to it for sure. But 5 meetings is basically, I don't know if the full 5 meetings of 2 hours, whether it's going to be done through telestuff. And then we know the chair of this committee just had a newborn, I believe. Oh, not yet? Okay, so that would require the chair to have to come to Ottawa to convene the committee. And I don't know if that's really fair. I thought the birth had taken place, it hasn't, and I don't want to get too much in public on this, but the reality is the chair has to come back here during that time. And so we would want to have a backup plan to that as well too, if the chair can't or should not be here, because I've been through that before where, you know, I had the birth of my son during the old days when we didn't have virtual, and I had 1 day to go home and to come back. And I would hate to see that similar situation take place for the chair, who's been very diligent here in terms of accommodating all of us. So that's why I think we maybe just push this a little bit off, and I appreciate the member bringing this forward in terms of the elements, but I think there's some practical things I like to consider because, again, I don't know if we have all that info in front of us. Thank you.
Well, we don't currently have a subcommittee agenda scheduled, but obviously that's always in the committee's hands. And I do know that I think early July and late August there are construction issues around some of the committee rooms, but there is a gap in between. MP Garron is next.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I'd like to thank our Conservative colleague for having tabled this motion. I understand, in reading it, that our Conservative colleagues find that the committee is extremely busy and therefore we need a lot of time, which would mean, in my opinion, that it would be a good idea to use this meeting to do clause by clause on Mr. Singh's bill. That's my opinion. I also want to point out to the committee that similar motions, I don't know, perhaps our Conservative colleagues can tell us how many committees here in Parliament are so busy that they'll have to sit all summer, in their opinion, because that seems to be cut and paste of a motion they've tabled all over Parliament Hill. Last night I was walking along Wellington and I think I saw a motion like this tied to a telephone pole. So I also want to add the fact that we were notified by the House Technical Services that there are important operations that have to be done in the summer. They'll need 5 to 6 weeks at least. So this type of summer meeting, well, in the past years, that harmed the modernization of systems, and that was crucial and it will be crucial this summer. So I'm really curious to see where this conversation will go, but being wide open-minded, I still have a lot of reservations about this.
MP Garron, and thank you for that update on the posting on trees. MP Turnbull is next.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some topics here that some of which we've already studied at this committee, and some of which I think have some merit for studying. I'm not sure regulatory barriers to competition, I think, is referring to Mr. Massey's motion, which I would certainly support studying interprovincial trade in the fall, but I don't see how that requires working over the summer on that particular topic. So look, we came to committee today for clause by clause. We have important work to do today, and my feeling is that we should adjourn debate on this and get focused on what the committee meeting was about today, which I think is an important topic to get through 352 and the clause by clause on that. So I would move to adjourn debate.
Okay. So that's a dilatory motion and goes right to a vote. So I'll ask the clerk to do a vote.
Mr. Turnbull.
I support adjourning debate.
Mr. Gahir.
In favor?
Ms. Dumberson.
Yes.
Mr. Badaway. Mr. Van Buynen.
Yes.
Monsieur Généreux.
Against. Oh, not here. Against.
What did you say?
Count.
Well, that's the government in waiting.
Mr. Viss.
Sorry, it's four.
favor.
Four. What did I say? Huh? What's this? I didn't
Mr.
sleep
Williams.
last night. Sorry. Four.
Mr. Garron.
Pour ajourner le débat.
Mr. Massey.
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't sleep. What?
9-4, 1 against.
Okay, so we've adjourned the debate. What was it? 9-4, 1 against? Yeah. You guys, it's interesting is one way to put it.
I'm glad Conservatives agreed with us.
I guess they need.
Or most of the Conservatives agreed.
They're missing me over there, I think. Okay, so I would like to. We'll start clause by clause then. I would like to provide members of the committee with a few comments on how the committee will proceed with clause by clause consideration of C352. As the name indicates, this is an examination of all the clauses in the order in which they appear in the bill, and I will call each clause successively, and each clause is subject to debate and a vote. If there are amendments to the clause in question, I will recognize the member proposing it, who may explain it. In addition to having to be properly drafted in a legal sense, amendments must also be procedurally admissible. The chair may be called upon to rule amendments inadmissible if they go against the principle of the bill or beyond the scope of the bill, both of which were adopted by the House when it agreed to the bill at second reading, or if they offend the financial prerogative of the Crown. Amendments have been given a number in the top right-hand corner to indicate which party submitted them. There is no need for a seconder to be moved to move an amendment. Once moved, you will need unanimous consent to withdraw it. During debate on an amendment, members are permitted to move sub-amendments. Approval from the mover of the amendment is not required. Sub-amendments must be provided in writing. Only one sub-amendment may be considered at a time, and that sub-amendment cannot be amended. When a sub-amendment is moved to an amendment, it is voted on first. Then another sub-amendment may be moved, or the committee may consider the main amendment and vote on it. Finally, if members have any questions regarding the procedural admissibility of the amendments, the legislative clerks to my right are here to assist the committee. However, remember, they're not legal drafters, so should members require assistance with drafting a sub-amendment, they must contact the Legislative Council. So I thank everyone for their attention, and with that, I'd like to welcome our departmental officials that are here today to try and guide us through clause by clause of this bill. From the Department of Industry, Samir Chabra, Director General, Marketplace Framework Policy Branch, Martin Simard, Senior Director, Corporate Insolvency and Competition Directorate, and Ian Desan, Senior Analyst, Corporate Insolvency and Competition Directorate. And here we go. So we will start with clause by clause consideration. So pursuant to Standing Order 75-1, consideration of clause 1, the alternative title, is postponed until the chair calls clause 2. So clause 2, clause 2 carry? No. MP Turnbull.
Just quickly, this clause proposes to give market study power to the Competition Bureau, and this was already done in C-56. And this version of the wording lacks the necessary and widely supported checks and balances that were built into C-56. So Liberal members will be voting against this clause.
Any MP Massey?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And this is the bill of Mr. Jagmeet Singh. And one of the things that took place, just for the public to know, is that a couple of competition bills came forward, and C-56, as the parliamentary secretary noted, already took care of this issue. I have a number of quotes from different witnesses for this that call for this clause to be removed because it's redundant with other legislation. So thank you very much for that.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? So shall clause 2 carry?
No.
No.
On division.
On division? On division. Shall clause 3 carry?
No.
MP Turnbull?
I'll just say penalties already increased in C-19 through the elimination of a statutory maximum. This clause reintroduces a cap based on a formula not adapted to criminal provisions, which would, in practice, lower the penalties. So we're opposed to this one.
P. Massey?
We're supporting this because historically the courts have actually not followed through with penalties, and this gives guidance to the courts for the penalties to actually be greater of $25 million and also excess profits. And lastly, 10% of the company's revenue for the past 12 months. And this really comes out of the past practices of the court systems that have been really basically unwilling to put stricter fines and penalties in place. So we support this change, the amendment.
Mr. Viss?
In general, I would echo Mr. Massey's sentiments on Clause 3. Putting in higher penalties will be effective deterrents for cartel-like behavior moving forward.
Mr. Turnbull.
No, Mr. Williams is next, then Mr. Turnbull.
Thank you, and I think this is a good cause, or a good clause. You know, we look at the bigger problems we've had. Other witnesses and talked about Canada Bread and others, where we've had, you know, the bread price fixing, and we've had certain problems that are there. We have to catch up to other countries. We do agree with this, higher fines and penalties to be deterrents, as well as the law. But I think this is a good clause.
Mr. Turnbull?
So strongly disagree with my colleagues that this is imposing a maximum penalty which removes the court's discretion, and we heard from witness testimony very strongly that this would not increase penalties. In fact, it caps penalties and doesn't allow the courts to use their discretion when determining the penalties. The order of fines could be higher without this in place. So, in fact, C-19, I think, addresses this already, so we'll be voting against. But I just wanted to clarify, Chair, on the previous vote, I said on division, but apparently you can't vote something down on division. So my mistake, you know, I shouldn't have made that mistake because I know better. It was
defeated.
But it was defeated. Okay, just wanted to make sure. Okay, thanks. Yeah, will do, immediately.
MP Garrow?
Même chose.
The same thing, Mr. Chairman. We received witnesses, including lawyers, credible people who have great experience in examining competition legislation, and they pointed out that Clause 3, despite the intent being very good, it would violate the discretion of the courts. As Mr. Turnbull pointed out, it could be interpreted by the courts as a ceiling on fines. So in that context, we will vote against Clause 3.
Okay, are there any other speakers? No? Well, I think then we'll go to a vote on Clause 3. I could ask the clerk to do a recorded vote.
On Clause 3, Mr. Turnbull?
Against.
Against.
Ms. Amberson?
No.
Mr. Badaway?
No.
Mr. Van Bynen?
No.
Mr. Généreux?
Oui.
Mr. Viss?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Garon?
Contre.
Mr. Massey?
Oui.
6 nays. 2, 3, 4 nays. 4 yeas.
6 nays, 4 yeas. So it is defeated. Are you sure you got it right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the clause is defeated. We'll move on to Clause 4. Are there any comments about Clause 4? MP Turnbull.
Yep, just quickly, this provision, as we understand, has fallen into disuse. It's not used very often at all. And we understand that the Commissioner of Competition is against adopting the language as is within Clause 4, so we'll be voting against.
MP Massey?
As increases a penalty for agreements or arrangements between federal financial institutions to fine of $25 million to match criminal cartel penalties, and for that reason we support that because that consistency is necessary to change the behavior of some of the practices.
MP Williams?
And same arguments as last time. We also agree with NDP on this, that we need some consistency. And even though I hear the argument that the courts may lose discretion, they're not normally using their discretion or not having cases come to the courts. This puts this into writing. It is a better deterrent to have that into the bill. Thank you.
Are there any more comments? So shall Clause 4 carry? Okay, I think we need a recorded vote. I'll ask the clerk for a recorded vote on Clause 4.
Clause 4. Mr. Turnbull?
Against.
Mr. Gahir?
Against.
Ms. Amberson?
Against.
Mr. Badaway?
Against.
Mr. Van Bynen,
No.
Mr. Jennifer,
Oui.
Mr. Viss,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Garon,
Non.
Mr. Massey,
We.
Four, 6 against, so clause 4 is defeated. We'll move on to clause 5. MP Turnbull?
I'll just make a very quick comment here. This language is adopted verbatim, exactly as is in C56, so I believe this is clearly redundant, and we'll be voting against.
MP Massey?
Thank you. We agree, and we're really glad the Liberals changed their position on this because the history of this committee had this issue up several times, and we had recommendations, and so it's a with sigh of relief that they're not going to reverse again on this issue.
Any other comments? MP Williams?
Just to agree, there's redundancy, so.
Any more comments on clause 5? Doesn't look like it. So shall clause 5 carry? I'm seeing no's. Do we need to have it recorded? Looks like it's a no. Looks like it's a no. Okay, clause 6. Clause 6, we have amendment from the NDP 1. I'll open up the floor. MP Massey?
Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Chair. This specifically Clause 6.3 increases penalties from 3% of worldwide revenue to 10%. Other aspects of this clause are deleted since the need to prove anti-competitive efforts to find abuse of dominance have already been dealt through the NDP amendments through Bill C-56. So this would align the penalties that we have proposed to deal with conspiracy and would hope that the committee moves on this. I think it's one of the ones that we had a lot of disparate testimony that supported this part of adding the competition strength that's necessary.
And thank you, MP Massey. MP Williams?
Yeah, we agree with this. The same arguments, just same voting we've just done in the last two. That we need more deterrence. We need to have greater penalties. We have a major problem in Canada by having too much power in the hands of a very few. So we need more penalties to ensure there's greater deterrence until we have more competition that takes care of that on its own.
MP Turnbull?
Yeah, my understanding is this amendment would increase the backup calculation for a maximum amount of an administrative monetary penalty in the rare situation where a benefit derived from an abusive conduct cannot be determined. So it's really a backup calculation. It's not actually, so maybe I'll just quickly ask Mr. Chabra if he would comment, or any of the team could quickly comment on how they see this one interacting with changes that already had been made in C-56 and C-59.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. There's a couple of issues that we've identified with NDP 1. The first, in our view, is that the amendment fails to repeal the entirety of the redundant provisions that would be created against Bill C-56 that would leave incongruencies and duplication in the section. My understanding is particularly 79 sub 4 remains unaddressed by NDP 1. On the second point, you're quite correct that this amendment would only increase the backup calculation. The primary calculation for a maximum amount of an administrative monetary penalty would continue to be driven off the benefit derived by the action. This is simply a backup calculation in the rare instances when it's not possible to calculate the benefit derived by the party. The current formulation was adopted by this House in 2022. The backup calculation has not yet been invoked at any time, and no issues have yet arisen that would suggest that a change to the law this soon after is necessary. So on two issues, I think there's some consideration for the committee. The first is the lack of complete kind of amendment considerations against the bill, vis-a-vis 79.4 being outstanding. And the second is whether it's important to move forward with amending this backup calculation at this time, given the lack of evidence.
So I hear both that there's a lack of evidence to justify this being necessary, but also that it doesn't repeal the full section, meaning that it would create some redundancy or some incongruencies was the word you used, but I would say some inconsistencies in the way the bill would be interpreted. So for that reason, we'll be voting against. Thanks.
Thank you, MP Turnbull. MP Massey.
Yeah, my understanding that it's still withstanding 79.4. It does not stop this improperly from actually being administered through the process. So I don't quite understand the argument there, because the amendments were drafted by Legislative Council and are consistent with passing in that context. So I think that's, and then the second thing is, like, I guess, you know, it hasn't been used as a backup. That's the whole point of having a backup, is it's there if you need it. And so to use it as a reason not to do something defeats the whole purpose of having a backup, is because that's what it's there for. And we have continued problems with regards to competition in Canada. And this gives us one other option to actually state to those operators out there that there is a system in place that will take care of you if you abuse Canadian consumers. That's the point of a backup.
Thank you. It doesn't appear there are any more comments on clause NDP 1. There being none, I get a sense that we probably need a recorded vote on this. So, clerk.
Mr. Turnbull.
Against.
Mr. Gahir.
Against?
Ms. Dambrusen.
Against.
Mr. Badaway.
No.
Mr. Van Bynen.
Against?
Mr. Genereux. Mr. Viss.
For.
Mr. Williams.
4.
Mr. Garon.
Contre?
Mr. Massey.
Oui.
5-6 to 4. 6 nays.
So there were 4 in favor and 6 against. So NDP 1 is defeated. We'll move on to clause 6 of the bill. Is there any discussion about clause 6? MP Turnbull?
Just very quickly, believe that this is also redundant following the passage of Bill C-56, and you know, this would result in inconsistencies if it were to pass. Thanks.
MP Massey?
Yeah, to be consistent as well, this commissioner said that this was not necessary, so I want to highlight that as well with the competition commissioner agreeing. Thank you.
MP Williams?
I'm just checking, Mr. Chair, it's clause 7 we're on, correct?
6.
Okay, yeah. That's right, okay, 100%, thank you.
So do you want to speak to clause 6?
Yeah.
So MP Massey, you were speaking to 7 or 6?
I was speaking to 7, so
As well.
apologies. Yeah.
Okay, so
I moved ahead.
You jumped ahead.
Yeah.
I know
Pardon.
this is exciting. We could be anxious to move.
Exactly. My friend from the block said to resign, so which I called for Mr. Turnbull after his, so it's fair.
So it's balanced. Okay. Is there any more discussion on clause 6? So does it appear that everybody is most are against or for? Or do we need a recorded vote? Everyone's against?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll say it's clause 6 is defeated. We'll move on to clause 7, and I gather Mr. Massey has something he wants to say about clause 7.
It was just briefly to thank the competition commissioner for the evidence, because it's already taken care of. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I was just going to say that we're against as well. This is already taken care of, and we don't want to reinsert the efficiencies defense back in the legislation. Thanks.
Any other comments? Being none, are we ready for a vote? Okay. All those in favor of clause 7? Opposed? Opposed? Looks like everyone's opposed. So, yes.
Thank you. That took 10 years for getting that done. So,
10 years.
Yes. It's a good one.
Okay. Clause 8. Any comments, questions on clause 8? Appears to be none. Oh, MP Turnbull?
I think this, well, no, we've created a complete ban on mergers being, on the block of mergers being based solely on market share. This sort of reintroduces that back in, which I think is confusing and incoherent given the decisions that have already been made. And I think that that's supported by the competition commissioner. So I would say we're voting against.
MP Williams?
Yes, the 30% will be law in Clause 249 of Bill C-59. And as we heard from witnesses, a 60% ban was opposed by almost all witnesses. So we'll be voting no for this.
Okay, any more comments on Clause 8? Doesn't appear to be any. Shall Clause 8 carry? No. I'm seeing everybody around the table looking like they're saying no, so it appears that Clause 8 is defeated. We'll move on to Clause 9, which we will start with NDP Amendment 2, which ends in 919. Any discussion? MP Massey on NDP 2.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. On the advice of legislative drafters, given the changes already made in the C-59, we have chosen to repeat the text that is found in C-59 and modify it slightly to incorporate structural presumption mergers resulting in over 60% market share, which has been proposed in Clause 8. We heard from the Canadian Anti-Monopoly Project on the end of the 8 challenge mergers by the Bureau over the last 40 years, and 7 resulted in this being market shares above 60%, 4 of them to near or literal monopolies, only the 2 of those who had any sort of remedy, and none of them were blocked. We want to help the Competition Bureau rebalance the equation against corporations, monopolies, and oligopolies and towards protecting consumers. And we would also just recall the testimony from Mr. Palado with regards to the telco sector, which is very relevant to this section with potential telecom mergers in the future. So we would like this to be passed and would be hopeful that, given the testimony you had in support of this, we're going to see this actually become reality. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Massey. MP Turnbull?
Yeah, my understanding is that this does not delete the bill's existing presumptions, needlessly leading to 2 highly similar sets of presumptions, and that multiple stakeholders have expressed concerns, including the Commissioner of Competition. Maybe I could ask the officials, Mr. Chabra, and or other members of the team, whether they could speak to the concerns that NDP 2 brings up.
Certainly, and thank you again for the question, Mr. Chair. I understand with the committee having taken a decision to vote down Clause 8, NDP 2, which modifies Clause 9, would no longer create the duplication issue that was previously flagged. However, it continues to offer some other challenges, including an outright bar against mergers over 60% market share. I believe this committee heard from a number of witnesses that indicated that that would be unprecedented globally and not recommended for a number of reasons. It could lead to undesirable or absurd results, of course, including in a scenario where, as many of Canada's startup ecosystem have noted, it's often via sale to a larger player that they find kind of an exit strategy. That can also result in some pro-competitive or pro-consumer outcomes as well. So implementing an outright bar on mergers rather than the approach that was already taken by this committee under C-59, which was to reverse the burden of proof, would be a significant step forward and one that has not been supported by stakeholders and experts.
And just maybe if I could clarify, it's not that market share wouldn't be taken into consideration upon merger review. It's just that we wouldn't be saying an outright ban on market share over 60% based on this. So I think my understanding is that the market share would, and this is what we heard from witnesses, that the lawyers, Mr. Yakabuchi and others, Ms. Quaid, I think all spoke to this, and they were unanimous when they were here. No, I don't think there was one witness, as I recall, that was interested in seeing this particular amendment move forward. Mr. Chabry, was that your understanding?
Thank you again for the question. That is indeed our understanding as a department. It's probably worth pointing out that in the last several weeks, in deliberations of the House Committee on Finance as well as in the Senate Committee, there have been a number of important changes undertaken to the Competition Act. Bill C-59 on its outset proposed to enable the tribunal to take into account market share, which was previously barred from doing. The House Committee on Finance took that a step further and introduced the structural presumptions approach that essentially reverses the burden of proof and puts it on the merging parties under certain conditions as they've been laid out. This approach here would then, again, in a matter of weeks, and I believe C-59 is scheduled for third reading in the Senate today, so we can expect it would move forward and move forward to become law shortly. This would then introduce yet another change on top of that series of changes that has already taken place.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you, MP Turnbull. MP Williams.
There we go. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And while this looks good in paper, and I do believe with our friend from the NDP on this, just based on some of the other testimony, some of the lack of some other testimony as well, but looking at just having a blanket cause and a clause in the problems it would have. Look, we know the problems in the past with the Superior Propane in its merger led to a major monopoly in Canada. But if we look at the other provisions that we're eliminating, like the efficiencies offense, that was enough to take care of that sort of instance. And when we look at this case, when we look at, and we asked some of our witnesses like Jennifer Quaid on whether this would be another provision that would, just as a blanket, would take care of the issues of major monopolies, the testimony that came back was pretty clear to say that this would bring up some other problems with that. Just having that percentage. So I think given that we already have a 30% in law, raising it to 60, given the fact that it will not alone ensure that we're taking care of the problem, it's some of the other things we're looking at with this bill and others. We will vote no to this, but it's not that we're not looking at the other clauses. There's going to be other things on that. But given the testimony that 60% was too high, we're going to be voting against it. Thank you.
Monsieur Garon.
Mr. Garon. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the same vein, we recognize that market shares are part of the indicators that should be used by competition authorities, just as concentration factors. But I think it was clear among the experts. We had Mr. Iacobucci, their lawyers, Mr. Ross from UBC, and a very well-known economist on competition, who pointed out the fact that this made the whole framework too strict for the Competition Bureau and could have counterproductive effects and prevent them from doing their work. There's also the issue of having a threshold that's set at 60% would lead to disputes and litigation about what's the definition of a market? Are we going beyond the threshold or not? Rather than look at the consequences of market share. So in that context, I'd reiterate the fact that nobody likes monopolies. Nobody wants to see companies that have a significant market share, but exceptions are sufficient for us to vote against this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Garon. MP Massey.
One of the things that doesn't get enough attention, and I'll use a specific example, is the grocery store chains and their monopolization now of pharmacies and other convenience stores as well, too. So their market share dominance goes beyond the just physical brand that you see when you pull into the parking lot directly, but indirectly, they have been purchasing and also moving their food products inside those different businesses, again, affecting consumers. And so their market share dominance is actually larger than what it would seem. So we still support this. I mean, I heard the same arguments against the efficiencies offense. We've been trying to get rid of that for decades. And as well, too, is that similar to what's going to happen for the next NDP clause, we have to predict what's going to take place in the Senate as part of this, and I would not want to do that. So again, having backstops to backstop, it makes sense to actually do things that we can control. And so the next amendment will also face that type of a challenge, but it's a challenge that we should embrace rather than run from. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, MP Massey. Are there any more comments on NDP 2? Seeing none, are we ready for the vote? I don't get a consensus on this one, so I would ask for a recorded vote. Clerk?
Mr. Turnbull.
Against.
Mr. Gahir.
Against?
Ms. Dambrusen.
Against.
Mr. Badaway.
No.
Mr. Van Bynen.
Against.
Mr. Genever.
Count.
Mr. Viss.
Against.
Mr. Williams.
Count.
Monsieur Garon,
Contre.
Mr. Massey.
In favor.
9 to 1. Yeas, nays.
So there are 9 against and 1 for, so the motion, the amendment is defeated. We're back on to Clause 9. Is there any further discussion on Clause 9? Doesn't look like it, so are we ready for a vote? Shall not, Clause 9 carry? No. I'm seeing a lot of no's around the table. Is that on division? Well, I guess you can't defeat something on division, but, or do you want a recorded vote?
Recorded vote.
Okay. A recorded vote, clerk.
Mr. Turnbull,
Against.
Mr. Gahir,
Against.
Ms. D'Ambrusa,
Against.
Ms. D'Ambrusa, Mr. Badaway,
No.
Mr. Van Bynen,
No.
Mr. Genever,
No.
Mr. Viss,
No.
Mr. Williams,
No.
Mr. Garon,
Contre.
Mr. Massey.
Favor. Excuse me. Pardon me.
So that's 1 for, 9 against, so the motion or the amendment is defeated. So we'll move on to NDP,
It's clause.
sorry, pardon me?
Clause is defeated.
The clause is defeated, sorry. Just to be correct, thank you, clerk. We're moving on to Clause 10, NDP 3, Amendment 3, which ends in 093 is up. MP Massey?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is similar to the previous one, so I'm not going to belabor the point, but also, too, this will make sure that we actually take care of it here as opposed to predicting what's taking place in the Senate. So that's why we're in favor of this, but we don't have to rehash the arguments unless there's willing to do so.
Any other comments on NDP 3? MP Turnbull?
Just really quick, I think this is an attempt to kind of fix and back out, like we removed the efficiencies defense in C56. I think the original clause that had been proposed by the NDP sort of threatens to reintroduce that back in, perhaps not wasn't intended, and I think this tries to fix that. I think it's just simpler to vote this down because we've already done the work on this and let C56 and C59 stand. Thanks.
Thank you, MP Turnbull. MP Williams?
Thank you. And yes, we agree with that. And I know that the efficiency defense, the first one came from my private member's bill, and I think this one came from the NDP leaders as well. So we don't want to bring it back in. We worked too hard to get it through, so we're not going to support this one. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments on NDP 3? There being none, shall NDP 3 carry? I'm seeing lots of no's. So we'll consider NDP 3 defeated. Shall Clause 10 carry? Or I should say, are there any comments on Clause 10 itself? There being none, shall Clause 10 carry? No. I'm seeing a lot of no's. We consider Clause 10 defeated? Clause 10 is defeated. We're moving on to Clause 11. Are there any comments on Clause 11? MP Turnbull?
My understanding is that this is entirely redundant given the passage of Bill C-56, which is the Fez bill. We've already done this work in that bill. Thanks.
Are there any further comments? Being none, shall Clause 10 carry? Sorry, I'm on 10, right? Sorry, 11. Sorry, 11. Apologize. I should tick them off. MP Massey was ahead. I'm one behind. So that's.
3 by-elections taking place apparently from this meeting.
So I'll ask again. Shall Clause 11 carry? I'm hearing a lot of no's. Is it a no? Okay. Clause 11 is defeated. Clause 12. We have an amendment proposed, NDP 4, which ends in 910. Are there any discussion? MP Massey on NDP 4.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and hopefully this one finds a better path. Increase the one-year limit to commissioners to challenge notifiable a merger to 3 years from 1 year. C59 increases the limit to 3 years only for mergers where the commissioner has issued an advance ruling certificate of or for not notifiable mergers, but excludes notifiable mergers. We can keep the exceptions for advanced certifications under Section 102 to align with C59, but extend 3 years for all our mergers based on the commissioner's advice that 3 years would be helpful, which he raised in his testimony. So what we're doing is we're giving more runway for the commissioner, and I don't have to get into further details, but we had a lot of testimony in favor of that, and I think that this is a modest improvement to what we have, giving the competition commissioner more time. Thank you.
I have MP Williams next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And yes, we agree. I think the Commissioner and the Bureau, giving them more resources but more time is going to be beneficial to their ability to do their job, and we support this.
Yeah, I wanted to go to the officials to ask whether this creates an unintended consequence. I know that advanced ruling certificates might be something that we see every merger party apply for in the future. Do we think that this would create some unintended consequences in terms of increasing the amount of time from 1 year to 3?
Yep, thanks very much for the question. So from our reading, this amendment imports about half the formulation or language that was voted on through Bill C-59. It essentially allows parties to benefit from a shortened limitation period when applying for an advanced ruling certificate. That is a mechanism to ensure that the Bureau is aware of a transaction. But it doesn't make this allowance for fully notified mergers, as Bill C-59 does. In that sense, it's a bit of a half measure. What it would do is create two different pathways by which an organization could do that kind of notification approach, and what it'll essentially do is create a lot of administrative burden for the Bureau, as well as for companies, because it'll simply encourage them all to apply for advanced ruling certificates rather than simply notifying. That creates a lot of extra work for the Bureau to then review and assess and respond to. It essentially becomes an ineffective kind of half measure. It allows for this extension to occur, but only in certain circumstances, which will then incentivize behavior to take essentially the other pathway.
To take the longer route in order to delay?
Well,
is that correct? Possibly?
Take a route that would increase the burden and workload on all, including on the Bureau, but not actually achieve the desired effect, because it would then allow them to still continue to benefit from a 1 year period. I think it's important to note that we've already taken steps in previous bills, including specifically C-59. There was consultation on this issue through the overall consultation on competition reform. It was seen to be important to provide more time for the Commissioner to review, but not in cases where the Bureau is aware of the transaction in advance. And that's the difference between C-59's approach and what's being proposed here, aside from the drafting issue that I just noted. It comes down to a question of why you'd want to increase business uncertainty over a longer period of time when an organization has already gone through the step of advising the Bureau in advance of its activities of the proposed merger.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Turnbull, MP Massey.
Just to respond is that the Bureau has asked for this and the Competition Commissioner, and I've heard these arguments about business uncertainty. Again, it's about the black hole opening up and sucking us all through because we're not going to have innovation and all the different things because we protect consumers. That's been used against the public continually through arguments here at Industry Canada for decades, and I don't think it's going to limit any of those things. I think giving flexibility to the Competition Bureau to be able to discreetly use that direction that they have and capabilities is actually going to provide more strength to them. But also, too, when we have some of the changing technologies going on, it's going to require some flexibility of the Competition Bureau to look back, and 1 year is not sufficient anymore when 3 years of damage to competition to Canadians can take place for it. So I support this wholeheartedly and believe that it's a modest step forward to improving the bill.
Thank you, MP Massey. Is there any further discussion on NDP 4? There being none, shall NDP 4 carry? No. Okay, it looks divided, so could I ask for a recorded vote?
Mr. Turnbull.
Against.
Mr. Gahir.
Against.
Ms. D'Ambrusen.
Against.
Mr. Badaway,
Against.
Mr. Van Bynen, Mr. Genereux,
Oh.
Mr. Viss,
In favor.
Mr. Williams,
In favor.
Mr. Garon,
Contre.
Mr. Massey,
We.
No 6, yeas 4, so NDP 4 is defeated. Clause 12, is there any more discussion about Clause 12? Shall Clause 12 carry? I've got some yeses, I've got some nos. On division? Can't defeat on division. Okay, do we need to have a vote then? Yes, a vote. Clerk.
Mr. Turnbull,
Against.
Mr. Gahir,
Against.
Ms. Demberson,
Against.
Mr. Badaway,
No.
Mr. Van Bynen,
No.
Mr. Genereux,
No.
Mr. Viss,
No.
Mr. Williams,
No.
Mr. Garon,
No.
Mr. Massey.
Nope.
It's defeated.
So NDP, Clause 12 is defeated. We'll move on to Clause 13. NDP 5, which is an amendment to Clause 13, ends in 920. MP Massey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm really pleased to move this amendment, and I would think that this at least a vote would get, passed, especially if you are concerned about the abuse of Rogers and other telcos on Canadian consumers. So this is dealing with the tribunal claim costs from the Bureau and making sure that it incorporates parts of C-59 in clauses 3 of C-352. This would serve as the purpose of ensuring that the amendment is made in the case where clause 266 of C-59 is not passed by the Senate in its current form. So again, coming from the Department of Redundancy, it is to make sure that we actually have this passed here. What I'm concerned about, and I think a lot of Canadians are, is that the tribunal has passed on costs for the Competition Bureau to do its job. And so I'll leave it at that, and hopefully that we can pass this to make sure that it gets done. Again, we can't predict what the Senate's going to do.
NP Williams and NP Turnbull.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And yes, I think this is a good amendment. You think of the things that are wrong is when you have a police force who's responsible for bringing charges against what you would think, or a decision which you think would be anti-competition or competition as a whole, who then, we can talk about the tribunal, and we talk about this a lot in the committee with the privacy, but eventually, hopefully, we talk about the competition tribunal. It overturns the ruling, and then the organization Rogers was able to sue the Bureau. That would be like someone getting overturned in court and suing the police force, which happens sometimes when things are really wrong. And we have this, we say, with exceptional circumstances that should happen, but should not have happened in this case. Rogers should not have got a penny out of the Competition Bureau for doing its job. This is, of all of them, this is probably, I'll agree, the best amendment that we have coming out of this bill, and we certainly support it. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Williams. MP Turnbull.
So my understanding of this is the way that it was initially drafted is that it inadvertently allowed for cost awards against the Crown in its original formulation, and the NDP has tried to fix that drafting error, which now is just duplicative of what's already in C-59, which is a simpler, more elegant fix. So to me, I don't see the need to pass this. We can vote against it, and we will be doing so.
MP Massey.
There's no downside to making sure this happens. So I'm actually kind of concerned that the Liberals, again, are counting on something that hasn't taken place, whereas this is actually going to ensure there's consistency in this. And we're facing right now the same situation with the Privacy Commissioner in creating a tribunal that the Liberals want, and is why they actually filibustered 2 days of this committee and not moving on C-50 or C-27 because of that, because we are at odds with regards to creating a tribunal that actually, again, could actually costs Canadian taxpayers. So it's not just the Competition Bureau that lost in this case. It was Canadian taxpayers that had to pay money out of their pockets to Rogers because the Competition Bureau didn't have the protection necessary to actually go at the case and is putting a cooling effect out there. So how many other large corporations and conglomerates and oligopolies are going to be allowed this type of an exemption and be told that it's okay for them to actually go after the Competition Bureau and their rulings? I mean, that's a cooling effect that's really hard, and it also takes resources away from the Competition Bureau. They're actually short $5 million from the actual funds right now to protect Canadians because Rogers went after them on this specific case. And it sends the message as well that we're actually going to pass this over and say, hey, it's okay. We'll just we're gonna basically allow you to continue to have this type of a behavior, and we're gonna green light it. And that's what this is about. So fine, if it is a little bit redundant with regards to what's taking place with another bill that's not in another chamber, which we can't control, will get done, and the Liberals are going to oppose it for just that alone, not for the real reasons of doing that, fine. They can be on the public record for doing that, to giving them another pass. And when they come here again, it almost looks like an audition from them looking at their board of directors, because we've seen the history of what's taken place when people leave this and where they go. I can tell you this much, that this at least is the most modest thing that has been proposed by a progressive bill to get done that's going to send a message to Canadian companies that they're not going to abuse our competition commissioner anymore in the Bureau. So I hope this would actually get support to get done, because it is very much, at least at the very least, going to have control that we have in this part here. And I'm not willing to, I guess the Liberals are willing to turn over the reins to the unelected Senate. And with regards to this, I'm not willing to do so, because they could actually do an amendment on that bill that takes this out. We don't have that capability in terms of knowing what they're going to do and when they're going to pass it. We would then have to actually deal with that back in the House of Commons as well. So maybe precursor to this, maybe that's their plan, is to take this out of the Senate bill on C-59 and put it back in the House. That could be their strategy, perhaps, maybe, because it doesn't make any sense for them to oppose what they actually put in the legislation before that we can't control right now, but we can do it this moment and make sure we send a strong signal to the Competition Bureau and Commissioner.
Thank you, MP Massey. MP Turnbull?
Well, we're opposing this because we've already done it. It's in the bill, which is in the Senate, which, so Mr. Massey's, making a plea to us to support something that we already supported. So it's already been done. This is redundant, and that's why we're voting against it. It's as simple as that.
Thank you, MP Turnbull. MP Viss?
Can Mr. Massey just clarify whether he thinks this is redundant?
Well, it's a backstop again, but they don't have backs. That's the whole point of the problem that we have, is we don't have enough supports in our systems, and we don't control what the Senate's going to do. So maybe the Liberals are going to actually then take this out of Bill C-59 in the Senate. We could actually have that happen. We don't know what they're going to pass, but what we do is we pass this here, and then we actually tell the Senate that we're actually supporting this change. So I'm not more flustered at this, because what we're telling right now the Senate is, if we don't pass this, we're telling the Senate that we don't really care about this. That's what we're telling the Senate. They're dealing with the legislation. So if we take this out, the message to the Senate is that they can then take that out as well, too, because we're not being consistent to protect what we want. And that's the reason why I think it's important. And I don't know what their objective is on this, but clearly there is an objective here, in the sense that if we say to the Senate right now, we don't care about this, we're going to pass a bill without it, we have just told them that they can tinker with that, because the House of Commons has now defeated that, and that bill will be inconsistent with what we're dealing with right here. That will be the message that we send them. And on this particular issue, it's pretty germane with regards to what's taken place to Canadian competition and the offense that's taken place to the Competition Bureau. So that's what we're dealing with now, and that's why I think the redundancy is actually important that we've proposed here today, and I'm a little upset with it, because we're telling the Senate right now again that we're reversing course. We're changing sails. And the House of Commons committee, with the government voting against this, is telling the Senate that they don't care about this issue. They don't support consistency. They have mixed messages. And on top of that, they could actually take those messages and turn that around to amendments that will then come back to the House of Commons, further delaying the passage of Bill C-59. Because if the bill actually gets amendments in the Senate, then we have to deal with it again in our chamber. And so this is why I'm actually a little bit concerned about this, and I think it's a bigger issue than it is, because I don't understand why the Liberals just wouldn't say, okay, well, you know what, it's redundancy, but that's okay. We got a backstop here, let us go. We'll send the message to the Senate that we're actually clear and we're good on these things, and we want it passed. Instead, what they're doing is they're saying, no, we have second thoughts about actually protecting the Competition Bureau, about second thoughts about the Competition Commissioner getting sued by large conglomerates, including Rogers and other things, to protect Canadian consumers. That's the message that's being told here, and that's why I'm totally concerned with their position on this, because I don't know if they have another agenda in the Senate, and I don't know if we have to actually now have delays to actually get the bill passed because it has to come back again, but that's what we're telling. They'll look at this and they'll look at the testimony here and they'll say, well, you know what, the government's saying, well, we don't want to do it anymore. So again, I think we should just pass it because it's consistency, and I think consistency is important to get it done. Thank you.
Thank you. MP Guérin, did you have...
Mais bon, mon collègue, M. Massé, c'est...
My colleague, Mr. Massey, knows that I respect him a great deal, but I don't understand why such success by the NDP gives rise to answer. It should be a benefit to being allied with the government. So I'm for simplicity in legislation. I'm against duplication. And if the Senate is listening to us, if there's anybody listening to us, we can give them a message today that we think this is important. We think they should not withdraw this from C-59. And I put to my colleagues in all logic that if the Senate removes this, they won't be too bothered about a private member's bill. So for simplicity's sake, I reiterate it's very important. It would be desirable to vote against this. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Guérin. Is there any more comments on NDP 5? Seeing none, are we ready for a vote? I think given the debate, we should probably have a recorded vote. Clerk?
Mr. Turnbull.
Against.
Mr. Gahir.
Against?
Ms. Damberzen.
Against.
Mr. Badaway.
Against.
Mr. Van Bynen.
Against.
Mr. Généreux.
Oh.
Mr. Viss.
In favor?
Mr. Williams.
En favor?
Mr. Garon.
Contre?
Mr. Massey.
Wait.
6 yeas, 4 nays. One. Oh, sorry.
Nays.
1, 2, 3, 4,
6
5,
nays.
6 nays.
6 nays, 4 yeas, so NDP 5 is defeated. We're on to the main clause, clause 6, or clause 13. Shall clause 13 carry? I'm seeing no's. I'll ask again. Shall clause 13 carry? No? No? Okay. It's defeated. Clause 14, new clause 14, being proposed by the NDP. NDP begins with NDP 6, which ends in 320. I am assuming Mr. Massey wants to speak to NDP 6.
Yeah, I don't think that, that we need to do the coordinated amendments because nothing's been passed, so we're done.
Is that the... So I understand from the clerk that it's your choice if you want to move them or not. And you're 6 through 12. Are you suggesting you're not going to move them?
No, that's fine. It's the same result, so it's fine.
All right. Thank you, MP Massey.
Thank you.
So we're on to the end of the bill motions. So shall the alternative title carry? Okay, let's have a vote on that.
Mr. Turnbull.
Oh, sorry.
Against.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I did go quite quick, so I
Yeah, I
apologize.
apologize. I turned So
Yeah, you
Yeah.
want to speak on the alternative title?
yeah, the Lowering Prices for Canadians Act was something that was designed to actually be complementary and was actually put in the system before some of the other legislation that was actually proposed. I'm not going to speak long on this, but I am going to point out that what we did have is testimony after testimony from witnesses, whether it be Mr. Akabuchi, whether it be Professor Ross, Mr. Hatfield. We also had Mr. Bester and Mr. Boswell from the Competition Commissioner actually talk about this bill being an add-on and certain parts of it being important for Canadians. So there could be some disagreement with some of the stuff that was actually proposed, but there was no disagreement that it was value added. And so I'm perplexed in terms of the support that has not been provided by the Liberals on this. And it's unfortunate because our Competition Act, as we heard from the Competition Commissioner, is related to our productivity. And so, again, we have another missed opportunity, which is sadly the history of this place in this committee in dealing with the act. And it takes, basically a decade to 2 decades later to get fixed, where we had universally from all of our witnesses, and I asked them there across the table several times if they thought certain parts would actually help getting this, changed in Canada. They all agreed to that. Yet we can't find anything in this bill to protect Canadians. I find that an unfortunate missed opportunity, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, MP Massey. So, if there are any further comments on the alternative title, being none, shall the alternative title carry? No. I'm hearing yeses and noes, so could we have a vote?
Mr. Turnbull.
Against.
Mr. Gahir.
Against.
Ms. Dambrusen.
Against.
Mr. Badaway.
No.
Mr. Van Bynen.
No.
Mr. Genereux.
Pour.
Mr. Viss.
For.
Mr. Williams.
4.
Monsieur Garon.
Contre.
Mr. Massey.
Me.
On the alternative title, 4 were yea, 6 were nay, so the alternative title is defeated. The next one is, shall the title carry? Oh, sorry, are there any comments about the title? I guess I should ask. Being none, shall the title carry? I'm seeing various yeses and nos, so let's have a vote.
Mr. Turnbull.
Against.
Mr. Gahir.
Against.
Ms. Dambrusen.
Against.
Mr. Badaway.
No.
Mr. Van Bynen. Monsieur Genereux.
Pour.
Mr. Viss.
For.
Mr. Williams.
4.
Mr. Garon.
Contre.
Mr. Massey.
We.
Oops.
So on the title, there were 4 yea and 6 nay, so the title is defeated. Shall the bill carry? As amended, sorry, as amended. I'm hearing no's and I'm hearing yeses, so we'll need a vote on this one.
Can we clarify for 1 sec, please?
Yes.
Yeah, just 1 sec.
You want to suspend for a moment?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll suspend for a moment. Is there any more debate? Oh, yeah. We're back in. Is there any more discussion on the bill?
Yeah.
Shall the bill carry as amended? MP Massey.
Yeah, thank you. Can we get an update from the Liberal Star Chamber over the last 10 minutes on what took place and maybe get an indication of their vote?
Well, I think we'll leave that for a discussion amongst themselves. So if there is no further discussion, shall the bill as amended carry?
Yes.
I'm seeing yeses all around, so we don't need a recorded vote on that. Thank you very much, everyone.
Point of order.
No, you're not done yet.
Oh, there's still two more other motions.
Sorry, are there two others? Oh, I didn't flip the page, rookie. Shall the chair report the bill as amended to the House?
Yes.
Thank you. Shall the committee order a reprint of the bill as amended for the use of the House at report stage?
Yes.
Yes. Both those carried. Thank you very much. Yeah, Mr. Viss. Sorry. Before anything else, since we are done, can I ask the committee's indulgence to dismiss the officials? Thank you. MP Viss.
Seeing how efficient we were with our time today, I'd like to go back to Mr. Williams' motion from the beginning of this meeting, finalize our discussion, and have a vote on this important matter about what we're going to do this summer.
Well, my understanding is that it was adjourned, but if there is progress on something else in between, my layman's version of the rules, you can reintroduce a motion, which is what you're proposing to do.
I propose to reintroduce Mr. Williams' motion.
Okay. Is there any discussion about that motion? It's not up to me. I'm the chair.
Yeah, well, I have the
MP
floor, so I'll-
Turnbull?
I don't really need to discuss it. I'm just procedurally, we adjourned debate on this motion. Can it be brought back onto the floor in the same meeting?
My understanding is yes, but I'll ask the clerk to comment.
As long as there's something in between.
A different part of business, I assume, yes. So, MP Viss?
Right. So right now in Canada, we have the Bank of Canada outlined that we have a productivity crisis. We have less competition than we used to in Canada. Industries are becoming more concentrated, and the number of industries which this is happening in is increasing. The standard of living for Canadians is declining with no end in sight, and we are on the cusp of the worst decline in living standards in 40 years. Canada is experiencing one of the longest and deepest declines in real GDP per person since 1985. And if per GDP does not recover in 2024, this period may be the longest and largest decline in per person GDP over the last 4 decades. 2/3 of Canadians believe the economy is headed in the wrong direction. According to Statistics Canada's analysis on small businesses, second quarter of 2024 report, smaller businesses were more likely to have lower revenues in 2023 compared with 2022 and remain less optimistic than larger businesses. And over the next 3 months, businesses expect obstacles such as rising inflation, rising costs of inputs, and rising interest rate. Small businesses are less likely to hire in the short term. Small businesses are more likely to expect a decrease in profitability. And 72.9% of businesses with 1 to 9 employees do not plan to take on more debt. And for 23.3% of those businesses, it is because they cannot take on any more debt. With that, Mr. Speaker, I think we should have a vote on this. Conservatives want to get our work done this summer. We've done some good work on Industry Committee. Let's just continue that. Canadians are expecting that from us, and I think our proposal is very reasonable.
Thank you, MP Viss. MP Garron?
Je proposerai un vote pour.
I propose a vote to adjourn the debate on the motion, Mr. Chairman.
Regulatory motion's always in order. We've got a motion to adjourn the debate again on this motion, so we will go to a vote.
Mr. Turnbull.
You guys going to support it again?
We support adjourning debate.
Mr. Gahir.
Support.
Ms. Van Brusen. Ms. Dambrusen?
What? Yes. Yes.
Mr. Badaway?
Yes.
Mr. Van Bynen?
Yes.
Mr. Jenner?
Contre. Is that clear enough?
Against.
Mr. Williams?
Against.
Mr. Garon?
Pour.
Mr. Massey?
Against.
Yeas, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Nays, 4. 4. Carries.
The motion to adjourn the debate passes 6-4. So is there any other business? No other business? Seeing as we no longer we don't have any business set up for Wednesday, I'll have a discussion with the clerk, but I'm sure it MP Massey.
If this is our last meeting, can we have the clerk just acknowledge that if a certain member has a child, that we send a letter from the committee, congratulations during the summertime for that member, because the member has been running this committee and you've done a good job in his absence, but the member actually has done. Actually, we have actually been well served over the decades I've been here on industry committee by chairs, including all, and that would be nice for the member to get that.
I would agree. We are blessed with, in my short time here, coming up to 3 years, we're blessed with, I think, one of the best chairs in any committee. And so absolutely, a letter of congratulations to that individual, whoever it may be, is the least we can do. MP Viss?
I'd like to extend the same courtesy to our wonderful analyst who is also expecting a baby in July.
She's still running marathons, which is incredible. Is there any other business? All right, then the meeting is adjourned. See you in September.
Thank you.